What's up, everybody? You are listening to Come On Man, a 3% Man podcast. I'm your host, Paul Bauer, and I am on the road to being a 3% man just like you. If you're new to the show, this is a podcast for fellow students of Corey Wayne's book, How to Be a 3% Man, and for men who just want to be better in general. We talk about dating, gaining wealth, being happy, and using the law of attraction to get everything we want in life. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Come On Man, a 3% Man podcast. If you are listening on iTunes, please give us a 5-star review and be sure to subscribe no matter what podcast platform you're listening on, or if you're on YouTube, also make sure you subscribe and hit those notifications. All right, this week is an interesting episode, mainly because of the format. We're changing things up a little bit. Mike DeFranco joined me. He's Ad Hoc Vox on TikTok. He has put out some compelling TikToks himself on, women and relationships and stuff like that. And he's been following me for a long time. He's always in the comments section. And I reached out to him and said, hey, man, I'd love to have you on the podcast sometime. And he said, I would come on the podcast, but only to interview you. Like, I would come on the podcast and want to know more about you, like a reverse interview. And I was like, that's an interesting concept. Let's do it. So that was months ago, and we finally made it happen. So Mike DeFranco comes on and interviews me, and I will bring you that conversation right after this. Men, tell me if you've ever experienced any of these symptoms. You feel tired all the time. Can't seem to pack on the muscle you used to. You have a hard time getting revved up in the bedroom. If you've answered yes to any of these, you might be experiencing low testosterone. Don't be ashamed of it. It's a common problem for men, especially men that are getting a little bit older like me. It's only a problem if you don't do something about it. That's why I've partnered with Evolve Telemedicine. They will give you a comprehensive blood test to see where your testosterone and other important hormone levels are at, all in the comfort of your own home. If for some reason your testosterone is low, they also offer hormone replacement therapy for as little as $60. So don't wait another day performing in suboptimal conditions. Click the link in the description and get your testosterone levels tested in the comfort of your own home. Evolve Telemedicine. Link in the description. All right, this week I have Mike DeFranco joining me, not as my guest, but as the host. He's Ad Hoc Vox on TikTok. Link to his profile will be in the show notes. I pinged him about coming on the podcast a few months ago when I had my old TikTok account, and he had an idea to do a reverse interview. He wanted to ask me questions, and I thought that was a great idea, so here we are. What's up, Mike?
Hey, Paul, what's going on? It's a pleasure to meet you finally. I feel like I kind of know you, though, because I'm always dialed into your multiple TikToks during the day and follow around, all of your whereabouts and your running and all that kind of thing. And then we've DM'd each other here and there. So I thought, hey, this guy and I have a lot in common. And we basically both have that mentality of always wanting to change and always be ascending. So I thought, hey, I'd like to talk to Paul and see what he's all about. So that's what prompted me to do this. So thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. This, as you can see in the background, I'm a big pro wrestling nerd. And this idea actually reminds me of Impact Wrestling has this character. Her name is Tennille Dashwood. And she has this bit where every week she does this talk show host thing, but she invites people on to ask her questions and talk about her. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be just like Tennille Dashwood's All About Me. This is great.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm more of a UFC guy, to be honest with you, but I think that's it's still fair. All cool. Yeah. So, I started following you obviously on TikTok, and I'm kind of an OG when it comes to Tinder and Bumble. So I've actually gone through the whole online thing. I went on over 200 dates in 4 years, Paul. So I actually found Corey Wayne and the whole 3% Man thing back in about 14 and 15. So I started by watching his videos. I have read the book, but so it's really kind of a cool thing that we were able to hook up and share thoughts. But one of the things I always wanted to ask you is I'm pretty enamored with the TikTok thing. So do you mind if I just ask you a few questions about the things that you do on TikTok?
Sure.
Well, you one of the things I wanted to say right off the bat is, are you on any kind of commission or royalties by plugging Robert Glover's or Corey Wayne's books?
Oh, no, not at all. No, I'm happy to spread that gospel because of how much value I've gotten from their books that I love. I have no problem talking about it, but yeah, nobody's paying me to do that.
I was going to say, like, outside of Duke Cannon and Cuvassier, and I was just wondering because, geez, these are great plugs for these guys. And did you ever meet Corey Wayne, or did you ever try to get him on your podcast or anything like that?
Not yet. And I say yet because they're going to come on the podcast. They're going to. I know it. I have reached out to Dr. Robert Glover and Corey through their email, but I haven't heard back from either of them yet. I had a friend in the 3% Man Facebook group that has had Dr. Glover on his YouTube channel. And so I asked him, I was like, how did you get Dr. Glover on? Because that's one of my goals is to get them on the podcast. And so he told me the steps he took, and he says it did take a while for Dr. Glover to get back to him because Dr. Glover's a busy guy. But so I was like, okay, so I did that, and I still haven't heard back from him. So I'm gonna have to just keep pinging him, I think.
And while you don't have to divulge any of the questions that you would ask them, is there always something like when you study these guys that you go, God, if I ever met these dudes, I'd want to ask them this because I disagree with this, or could they suss this out a little better? Do you ever have any, do you have a set of questions in your mind that you would like to ask these guys specifically if you ever had them on?
I've actually started writing down questions for Dr. Glover. So I have a list of questions for him already. Every once in a while, it just pops in my head to ask Corey certain questions. One thing I want to do is I want to talk to him about his second book but I want to do it tactfully because I thought his second book wasn't very good. I don't know if you've read his second book, Mastering Yourself.
I have not read that yet. No.
Yeah, it's not that good. It's a one and done. It's a very political book, and it really has nothing to do with mastering yourself at all. And so I want to ask him about it. Like what, a lot of people say the same thing about the book. It's very autobiographical. It's very political. I didn't get anything out of it that really makes me feel like it's about mastering yourself. Like what about it is mastering yourself, but I want to do it tactfully so I don't insult the man because he's a good guy,
That's cool, man. No, it's really interesting. I'm going to get a little bit more trivial again. Because I met you through TikTok. How do you keep that damn camera so steady when you're on, dude?
I don't know. I think it's got to be something in the phone, because the same question gets asked of Emily King a lot. How do you keep that phone so steady? It's not like I'm holding it that steady. I think there's got to be some kind of self-steadying software or something. I don't know.
I was convinced that your little friend that you run with all the time was actually, running next to you and doing it. I was just convinced it's not really you taking the selfie on that.
Oh, Tyrene. Oh, you're talking about when I'm running.
When you're running.
I'm holding it. I don't know. It stays pretty steady. Yeah. No, yeah. Tyrene's she's not doing any work.
I thought maybe that was what was going on. How does this guy keep this thing so steady? When you did the TikTok and you do the podcast, which the TikTok usually is basically there to promote the podcast. Yeah. Is there an entrepreneurial side to this, Paul? Like, are you going to, where does this end with the podcast? I mean, was this kind of something you always wanted to do? You had 30,000 followers. So could you just maybe speak to that a little bit?
Well, yeah, let me just tell you how the podcast began. The podcast began because I joined the 3% Man Facebook group last year during lockdown. And, I was going on dates and I was posting a lot of date updates in that group, as we do. But I was posting them as videos. After the date, I'd be in my car and I'd say, yeah, I just had this date. This worked for me. This didn't work for me. I tried Corey's stuff here. This worked great. And I started doing that so much that the people that started that 3% Man Facebook group invited me to be an admin. And then through that process of just being active in the community, I had this idea one day, like, why not do a podcast about this? And you can have the 3%, the other 3% brothers, as we call each other, on to talk about their journeys and stuff. And so that it started out of that group. And sometime near the end of last year, I broke up with Marine Corps chick, and I decided to really just, take a break from dating for like a good month and focus on the podcast. And I started thinking of like, how can I get more people to listen to the podcast? Because right now it's just the 3% Men guys in the group, And so I decided that I need to put it on YouTube. And then the thing about Marine Corps chick is that she was on TikTok, and she would post and I say this in the nicest ways possible, because I actually really like Marine Corps chick still. She's a pretty cool chick, just wasn't right for me. But she would post the dumbest stuff on TikTok, just the most pointless things, and they would blow up. And I was like, she's not saying anything. Like there's no substance there. But she's blowing up. So I was like, you know what? If I get on TikTok, I could probably get a bigger audience. And so that's why I started doing the TikToks. Yeah. And then I got up to about 30,000 followers before they banned me. And that really blew up the podcast itself. I really started getting a lot of subscribers from it. And that's really when I started looking at it like, you know what, there's something here, like people really, follow this. They reach out to me all the time. They start reading Corey's work. They reach out to me after they read the book and start applying the principles I talk about. And they go, man, this is amazing. It's life-changing stuff. And a lot of guys have joined the 3% Man Facebook group because they started following me on TikTok. And I realized, this could be something. Like this could eventually become, a full-time job. And so that's what I would like. I would like for this podcast to be my full-time job where I could put 100% focus into it and really just help men become better men in general, So yeah, that's my goal.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback on that side of things, when you mentioned Emily, the thing that always fascinates me about Emily is how she always has something really cool and new to say. And one of the things, I think she went live one time, and I just asked her, and I just jumped in with the myriad people that were already on the already following her and watching her live feed. And I just said, hey, how do you know what you're going to talk about that day? So I'm going to bounce that back to you. How do you know what your content's going to be when you jump in on that? I know you repeat it, much like you're supposed to, read, 3%, 10 to 15 times, but how do you determine what you're going to talk about every day just to get the message out?
A lot of it just comes to me, I'll be sitting there and I will, sometimes I'll be listening to one of the books I'm listening to, and an idea will pop in my head to talk about it. Usually it's something about the book that I'm listening to. So that's a big part of it. Sometimes I'll be scrolling through TikTok and someone will say something and I'll piggyback off that idea or something, or I'll stitch that or whatever. So yeah, usually it's not like I'm sitting down planning what I'm going to say for the day. It's just things pop into my head. Like, you should talk about this. And so I do. There's no planning involved. No planning involved.
Gotcha. You always talk about your geographical location and how unfavorable it is sometimes to meet women. So was there ever a component of this that maybe you wanted to increase your bandwidth, so to speak, and get the message out there that, hey, this is my beacon, ladies out here? Was there any component to that at all?
No, not really. Usually the reason why I talk about that is because a lot of guys have much more favorable locale than I do, but they complain that they can't find anybody. And I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. If you guys are living in a big city, there's really no excuse for not being able to go out and meet women in your area. Especially I did a TikTok that it actually did really well. I went back in January, I went to Denver with my daughter. And at that time I wasn't seeing anybody. So I was on all the dating apps. And I just left the dating apps on, and it's not like I'm trying to date women in Denver. They're 5 hours from me, and I'm not willing to drive more than an hour for a date. That's just ridiculous. And so, but I would notice that my Bumble was just blowing up. Like, women were just liking me, and I always pay for the premium because I like to be passive about dating. I don't want to be sitting there having to swipe all the time. So to me, it's worth the extra money to be passive and let them swipe on me first, and then I could pick and choose. And so, yeah, I just noticed like every time I go to a big city like that, my phone just starts blowing up with so and so liked you, so and so liked you. And so I screenshotted it and I just scrolled through of all these women that were liking me. And I was like, guys, you know, you have no excuse not to go out dating. This is ridiculous, you know?
Exactly. You know, living in Chicago and in the Bay Area, I'm like, why do you even do online dating anymore? I mean, gosh, there's so many people out there. I know that, you know, obviously with the pandemic, everything, it's kind of kept things a little bit shut down, but I've never had a problem, you know, meeting people, you know, face to face, which I still think live is the best way to do it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's my thing. You know, I think online dating is, I know it's a necessary evil, like you've said, but yeah. I don't know. I just think, gosh, you know, if you've got a good enough personality and you know, you have a likability factor, you should meet people live. So
I think, you know, there's in the 3% Man Facebook community, there's pretty much a consensus that you will date higher quality women if you meet them in person, because, you know, the thing about dating apps is that, you know, it's usually, you know, the top tier women don't go on dating apps because they don't need to, because guys are always approaching them. Whereas, so you're usually getting like lower tier women, typically, especially in big cities, you're getting lower tier women on dating apps because they don't get guys that are approaching them so much, right? I don't know if that's always the case, because sometimes they see like really, really attractive women on dating apps. They're just, you know, don't like to get out of their house that much, I guess. And also guys are, if you see the guys in my comment section, they're always scared to approach women. So there's still a lot of that. But the fact that there are a lot of guys that are scared to approach women and women do want you to approach them, you can do better if you're approaching women in public, because you can approach hotter women and that just makes you seem more confident, especially if you do it the right way, you know, and then women find you know, confidence attractive. So yeah, there's a consensus with that. My problem is, in my small town, all the women that are my age all commute. They all commute to Grand Junction or Montrose, Colorado. So that's an hour for me, and that's where all the women are. That's all the women my age are. So if I'm out and about in my community, it's all just like older people and people not, you know, that I wouldn't want to approach whenever I'm out and about. I never see like really hot women out and about in my area. So I really have to, unless I want to go out and spend the day trying to approach women, which I'm too busy to do that. You know, it's just easier to do dating apps for me.
Yeah. One time I was on the dating app, Paul, and I had a woman actually that I went on a couple of dates with. She showed up at my house. I guess she found my address online. So it was kind of scary. Yeah. But with that said, you know, do you ever have any issues when you go on these dates with women where they, you know, kind of cyber stalk you a little bit and they find out that you've got 30,000 followers on TikTok and a podcast where you're, you know, talking about, you know, strategically, you know, dating women? Do you ever have anyone kind of confront you on that on dates, or, you know, do their homework, so to speak, before they meet you?
Yeah. The only time that's sort of been a thing is my current girlfriend. We'll call her Nurse Chick. I haven't really talked about her on the podcast yet. We had been dating for maybe a month or so, and she was just bringing up just oddly specific things that I talk about all the time on my TikToks, especially, you know, about hypergamy and, you know, red pill and stuff like that. And she was it was just odd. You know, this is stuff that doesn't normally come up in conversation. And all of a sudden it would come up and I'd be like, and I'd just sit there for a minute going, she's got to have found me either on my podcast or found me on TikTok, you know? And so I did a TikTok about it saying, hey, have you ever been on a date and you think that someone's been cyber stalking you because you've said something and then or they've said something that's oddly specific? And as soon as I put that TikTok out there, like maybe 30 minutes later, I get a text from her saying, okay, I've got a confession. So yeah, that she's the only one that's really done anything like that. When I dated Marine Corps chick who's been on the podcast, she knew about this stuff. She didn't find it. She knew about it because she was coming over to my house, and, you know, I have, you know, Corey Wade's book sitting on my coffee table, and I had the, you know, the podcast mic out. So she knew about it that way. And then she went back, you know, and I didn't have TikTok at that time either. So she never really like listened to the podcast. Oh, no, actually she did listen to the podcast, because when she found out I had the podcast, we talked, and I talked about this with her on the podcast. I just remember this. She said, "Oh, my boyfriend has a podcast," and sent it to her mom, and then sent it to like her brother and like all of her friends and stuff. And this was back when, like, if you've listened to the early versions of the podcast, I was still, I was spinning plates. I was still new to Corey Wayne, and I'm just learning this stuff, and I'm talking about like my exploits, like my Tale of Two Train Wrecks episode, and so her mom listens to this, and she's like, "I don't think this guy's right for you. I think he's a player, and he sounds like a real chauvinistic asshole and stuff." And so that caused problems a little bit with Marine Corps chick. She would always argue with me about the principles, but the principles like worked on her. So I always thought that was cute. But I think those are the only really two examples where it's been an issue. I think most women haven't found this stuff yet. And I don't know. And if they do, whatever. I mean, it's one of those things where it's out there now. I couldn't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So they either have to get on board or get to stepping, I mean, that's just how it is.
So when sometimes when I'm listening to your stuff, I'm watching you on TikTok, and I just say to myself, "Oh, Paul, I know exactly what you're talking about, and you're right on. But this one could potentially get you a warning or banned." Uh-huh. Do you feel like maybe talking about that a little bit? I know you probably have other podcasts coming down, because I think you've mentioned that where you address this, but. What do you think is the general, without getting into the specifics, of the other podcasts, what's your general thought on why you've been banned from TikTok? Because you're really not that out there. And that's going to segue me into talking a little bit more about, 3% in that book. So
sure. So, on the back end. So what I've tried to do in this new iteration of my TikToks is tone things down a little bit. What actually got me banned, because I reached out to TikTok to see if I could get that appealed. So I reached out to their support, and they a month or so later, emailed me back saying they're firm on their decision on it, and it was because of harassment and bullying is why. Now, so there were some topics that I would cover in the old iteration that I won't do anymore. So and some of it was a joke. It was like, some of it was because I thought it was funny. I got a bunch of things flagged for the whole super straight trend. Do you remember the super straight trend? Mm-hmm. Like that whole thing. Like, I really don't care if someone, what their sexual orientation is, what they identify as. I don't care. Like, it doesn't really impact me. And so a lot of my videos were on, men being more masculine now, right? Because there's the whole society these days is pushing men to be more feminine, and I was trying to combat that. So I think the one that broke the camel's back on me getting banned was I did this video where this gal was saying, "Let's normalize men painting their fingernails. Let's normalize men wearing dresses. Let's normalize," and I just stitched it and I said, "How about we fucking don't?" Right, and that blew up. I had like thousands of likes on it, and that one I think was the last one that was really polarizing I did that before I got banned. So I think that was it. There was I would stitch people's videos, and I've noticed that if you stitch someone's videos and then you're critical of them or what they were talking about, those usually get flagged. So I won't do that anymore. Those get a lot of views, because controversy creates clicks, so right. So yeah, a lot of that stuff. I mean, TikTok's really big on not bullying, and even though I'm not really like, I don't know, I'm trying to make a good point. Like, I can see where that might come across as bullying, so I'm not going to do that anymore. I did one on like the COVID vaccine, and I really don't want to get political in my TikToks and stuff and on the show, but I did one on that. That one didn't get flagged, but that caused a lot of controversy. Let's see what else. I did one where I made a song, and it was based on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's, come with me and you'll be in a world of whatever.
Like
and
your imagination or something like
right.
that.
But I did one on you'll be in a world of women seeking validation. And I was taking women's TikToks where they're like shaking their ass and dressed in bikinis and stuff. And I put it to that music, and then those would get flagged for sexual, like, or for nudity, sex and nudity. Those would get flagged for sex and nudity. So I'm not going to do that anymore, you know. but yeah, I mean, that the stuff that they pick and choose from is kind of ridiculous, right? Like, I'm taking actual TikToks of women in bikinis and stuff like that are okay. Like, those have 1 million views and stuff like that, but somehow those are okay. But if I put them on my channel, it's sex and nudity. It's not fair, but I'm just steering away from that stuff now.
Yeah. So, you know, you think about 3% Man book, Corey Wayne, and it wasn't really written that long ago. You know, I think it was 14 or something like that. But it seems like the game's changed so much, Paul. You know, it seems like that book is predicated with one major premise, that these are kind of traditional gender roles. Yeah. And when we talk about, you know, the feminine energy versus the masculine energy, and what women are attracted to, and the security and the mystery and the uncertainty of emotions, it seems like the paradigm is now shifting through the zeitgeist of the world, where women are kind of getting more in touch with their masculine side as a part of gender equality. And then, like you said, men are kind of being more emasculated toward more of their feminine side. And this is kind of, you know, it's kind of indoctrined, you know, through our social media, through our, you know, our mainstream media. Do you think Corey Wayne's book's a little dated right now? And are you fighting an uphill battle, you know, with what message you're trying to get out these days?
I don't think it's dated. I think a lot of these principles are inherent in our DNA. You know, it's in our biology. And, you know, a lot of the feminist sexual revolution is pushing for, you know, a certain thing, but it's really, you know, if you start reading more like other red pill type books, right? Like Rollo Tomasi and, you know, Richard Cooper, they talk about it a little bit more. They're a little more harsh about it. But what it comes down to is, you know, a lot of the traditional values were sort of put in place to kind of keep hypergamy in check. And the feminist movement has made it so that the women could be more hypergamous and embrace it and stuff like that. And they're trying to get men to conform to their will, right? Be more feminine. Now, the problem with that is that a majority of women, although they say they want these guys to be more, you know, less toxic, you know, this toxic masculinity idea, what's happening is men are listening to it and trying to conform to it because they think that's what women want, because women say they want certain things. But now women are complaining that they can't find masculine men anymore. And, you know, where have all the good men gone? And, you know, stuff like that, because they're actually drawn to masculine men. So no, I don't think I'm fighting an uphill battle, because I think a vast majority of women actually do want masculine men. Just men aren't being taught to be masculine anymore. So, because I have a ton of female followers on TikTok that are actually, like, they agree with me. You know, every once in a while I'll get like a feminist on there that's, you know, raising hell in the comments. And I just, now at the point, because I got banned before, I blocked those people immediately, because those are the people that are going to be reporting me. So
yeah, I think it's probably a very, you know, a small majority of people that are probably beefing you, Paul, you know. So
yeah. So
how it always works, you know.
Yeah. So no, I don't. His book is very. I like to classify Corey as very purple pill, but I think there's a lot of truth in blue pill. There's truth in both, right? There's no real. It's not good to be extreme on either end. So no, I think Corey's book is probably the perfect balance, and women actually do respond to everything that he talks about in that book. So no, I don't think it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, you know, one thing, and at the end of 3%, there's Corey puts in there the 10 disciplines of love, which is actually a really spiritual way to look at a book that kind of has these rules, which at times are kind of, I don't know, they're kind of harsh, to read, maybe if you were a woman. But if you put that at the beginning of the book, I think it would make things it put things in more of a 5,000 foot view and into perspective. And with that said, do you think that 3% Man should be a required reading for women that are, trying to find the right partner?
I don't think it's required for women. I feel like a good book for women is actually Atomic Attraction by Christopher Canwell, because that book goes into studies a lot more than Corey's book, and it really dives into the psychology of women. And women, I feel like, don't even understand themselves or what they are attracted to. They're raised just like us, with the Disney princess fairy tale media idea of what love should be, and so they think they want that, but they don't understand why they always go for the bad boy, or why they always, like if you watch a lot of TikToks, like you'd think that every woman's last boyfriend was a narcissist. Right. And right. So I feel like that would be should be a required reading for women, just so that they can understand themselves better.
Yeah, you had mentioned Atomic Attraction, and I listened to it I listened to it audibly, and it kind of made the hairs on my arm stand up a few times, because I could relate to it so much. That was a hard one to listen to, because it was so real. Mm-hmm. The scenarios that he gave, oh my gosh, like that was a tough one for me, because it was so spot on. It gave great details. So yeah, I understand what you're saying there. So you always talk about, this is your journey. So where do you stand in the journey? I would have thought that maybe you started the journey before I started doing my homework on you a while back, but this is actually not even really 2 years old. But where are you on your 3% journey? If you were speaking out to Steve and Chris and the Facebook guys, where are you on this journey? How's the improvement?
Oh, I can see a drastic improvement from my time last year to this time this year. In fact, I don't post. So we post, sometimes we post text exchanges and stuff in the 3% Man group. And I stopped doing that months ago, because usually when I'm posting that, I'm not asking for people's advice, but in the 3% Man group, that they just, like, a lot of times you post stuff like that a lot of guys jump in there offering unsolicited advice, and it's just annoying. So I don't do that. But I posted a text exchange that I had with Nurse Chick just the other day. And I said, I usually don't post this stuff anymore, but I feel like this is the goal. Like, you want this type of reaction with the woman that you're seeing. So I posted that in there, and a lot of guys pointed out to me that the way I handled the text exchange was like a master, and I was like, I didn't really think about that. My text bubbles were smaller than hers. I kept my responses like short and sweet, but what I did was I elicited more reaction out of her, and I wasn't even trying to do it. It's just second nature now. I've read the book 18 times. So, Corey says to, read it at least 10 to 15 times. I feel like when I hit that 15 mark, I should have gotten a diploma or something. But honestly, I feel like the journey never ends. It's always a work in progress. One of the things I see in the 3% Man group is men who have read the book in the past, and they got that mentality that the book gives you when you read it multiple times. They found their woman of their dreams, and then they stopped reading it. They stopped doing the work, and things fizzled out. They fell back into their, blue pill beta original programming, and they lost their woman of their dreams. That she ended up like losing attraction and leaving. And so then the guys find their way back to the community and start reading the book again. It's like, well, if you never stop reading it, even while you're in that relationship, then that probably wouldn't have happened. You probably would have kept that mindset going. And so when I realized that, even when you get into a relationship, like now it's not the time to be complacent. You still got to read the book. You still got to put the work in. I realized that this is just a never ending journey. So I'm still at the beginning. to answer your original question.
And with Nurse Chick, did you find that you were implementing all of what you've learned up to that point? And did you think that maybe if you didn't learn all that stuff, you would never have been with her at this point? You know, would you have missed out?
Yeah. I absolutely implemented everything, except for, I will take a step back. So I met her on a coffee date, and the book clearly says don't go out on coffee dates, but she works graveyard shifts. So that was really the only opportunity to go out with her. Now in Dating Essentials for Men, he says go on coffee dates. So, it really doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, when I met her on that coffee date, it was, I let her do 80% of the talking. I had wide open body language, and I applied 100% of the principles, and it turned out like that night. And I'm not using her name, so she probably doesn't even care if I say it. But that night, I went home because it was coffee date, and she had to go to work, or she was supposed to go to work. I went home and I was watching WrestleMania, and I get a text from her saying, "Hey, I got low census. I don't have to work." This is the first day I met her. She says, "I got low census. I don't have to work." And I said, "Well, if you got nothing better to do, why don't you come over to my house? I'm watching WrestleMania." And so she came over, and she watched it with me. She had never watched wrestling before. And she's the kind of chick that really puts in effort, like she really puts in a lot of effort. I don't know if she really cares about wrestling, but she certainly acts like she cares about it. And she came there and she was just like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. These guys are doing such, and she was really getting into it. And then after WrestleMania was over, one thing led to another. And, like Corey talks about in the book, Indoor Olympics. So that was first date. And it was just because I put in the principles, one step or two steps forward, one step back, and all that stuff. I was just applying the principles. I don't even think about it anymore, Yeah. And then I just, keep things mysterious. I keep, texting and phone calls between dates to a minimum, and, was just setting, one date a week and stuff like that. And it was just like clockwork, by the, seventh date or something like that, she was asking me to be exclusive, and it was just like straight out of the book. Yeah. And if I hadn't read the book, I would have messed it up. I absolutely would have messed it up. A lot of guys, they like a girl, and they just over pursue, and it turns women off. And, guys are just doing what they think women want, but women don't respond to that stuff. So I used to be that guy. I used to over pursue. I used to sniper date, where I date one woman at a time. And then when, things didn't work out after the second or third date, then my heart was broken because I had to start all over. And I just don't do that stuff anymore. And it's a whole other dating experience.
Yeah. I used to always gauge when I would go on all these dates, Paul, like how I was improving. And I actually forgot that I was on a date. I was thinking, hey, did I do this the right way? Did I text back at the right time? Like, did you ever, you think, people that are going through this journey ever kind of think, oh, I'm trying to follow these rules, so to speak, or these guidelines, if you will, and they forget that they're actually supposed to be more focused on the individual across the table than themselves?
Oh, you mean like while they're on the date, they're overthinking things?
Yeah, because I would always gauge every date that I went on, especially if it didn't work out, like, okay, what could I do next time to improve? And then I forgot that I'm just supposed to kind of be myself and be natural with the person that I'm, dating at or going on that date with. And I was just wondering, have you ever, thought that way, where you're more hung up on the personal journey than you were about focusing on the person that you were actually going to meet or meeting? I
haven't had that problem, but yeah, I've seen that in the 3% Man group where guys are getting paralysis of the analysis, in their dating, and they're overthinking things. And it's like, I have a friend, he's been on the podcast numerous times, Luke. And Luke, the first time reading that book took him like almost a year to read 3% Man, because he's the kind of guy that he listens to it on audio, but then every time something important comes up, he wants to stop and then take notes. And so he's just can't get through the book because he was taking notes too much because he's overthinking it. And I was like, dude, Corey doesn't say, listen to my book and take a shitload of notes. He says, listen to it 10 to 15 times. Right. I said, just listen to it and then go back and listen to it again. I said, by the third or fourth time, it's just going to seep into your head. It's going to become a mentality. It's not going to, don't worry about the notes. And when he started doing that, he started having a drastic improvement on his dating journey too. And so, yeah, I think too many guys do get lost in that analysis, and they really shouldn't. They should relax a little bit. It's not that hard.
So what's next, Paul? This is kind of the last one I had for you. What's next for you? Like, what's the next step in the journey? Are you going to keep this moving? What do you have coming down the pike? You writing a book? Are you doing a different podcast? What do you got?
There's lots of things. I hope to keep doing this podcast for, the long-term foreseeable future. I like doing this podcast. It's a fun hobby. I eventually want this podcast to be my full-time gig. I've had lots of people asking me for a book now, so I think I have to do a book. I have to write a book now. The thing is, I'm trying to wrap my brain around what I would do the book on. I don't want to be a copy of
everything else that everybody's done, right?
Right. Although, it's funny if you read 3% Man. Before I read 3% Man, I read Doc Love's book, and Doc Love is where Corey Wayne got how to, the concept of 3% Man, and he talks about a lot of Doc's stuff in there. But Corey also talks a lot about Tony Robbins in there, David Data's stuff. So Corey's a blend of all of that. I think my book would probably be a blend on, Corey's work, Dr. Glover's work, Chris Canwell, Rollo Tomasi. It would be a bunch of different people's ideas all in this one book. And plus my stories, my personal stories.
Right.
So, and then, by the time this drops, there's probably going to have been an announcement, maybe even a first episode, but a few guys in the manosphere on TikTok and I are getting together to do a group podcast.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
that's great. All right, cool. All right, my man. Thank you.
That's it.
Pleasure.
Well, I'm glad to have you on, man. This was actually fun. I've been on other people's podcasts and they ask me various questions and stuff like that, but not like this. So
no, thanks for letting me hone in on my skills too. But it's it's been a pleasure, and as I said, it's one of those things where we all you have 30,000 followers, or all the followers that Emily has. There's another person I follow has over 200,000. And much like getting to know you, I would love to be able to interview those people as well and just see what they're all about, because I always wonder, because I love the normal loquendi. I love listening to what people have to say, and I think that that's very inspirational in life. And you're one of those people. So thanks, man.
Yeah, no, that's actually one of the things I like about the podcast is the opportunity to talk to other TikTokers like that. So by the time this drops, my interview with Emily King will have already been out, and that interview was awesome. Yeah, Emily's a really cool person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I'll give you your day back. Sounds good. You too. Enjoy what's left of the weekend.
All right, you too. Talk to you later.
Take it easy. All right, bye.
Mike, thanks again for joining me. This was a little bit of a shorter episode, and I know we didn't get to. You wanted to ask me about my ex-girlfriend, the one I had of 4.5 years, but you kind of felt like it was a taboo subject. It wasn't. I would have been happy to talk about it. I've talked about it quite a bit on the podcast. I feel like even though I would never get back with her again, ever, I feel like she was the catalyst that got me into this space. So I don't mind talking about her at all. And, what kind of relationship that was, and, what I learned from it, the kind of red flags that I overlooked in her, just stuff like that. There was a lot of learning material from that relationship that I'm happy to share with people, but maybe next time, because you're welcome back. I'd love to have you on again, man. You're a really cool guy. All right, guys, that's pretty much all we have this week. So we'll catch you next time. Thank you for listening to Come On Man. If you're new to the podcast, I highly recommend reading How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne at least 10 to 15 times. I recommend you watch his coaching videos on YouTube, and I recommend that you engage with other 3% men in our 3% Man Facebook group. Links to all of these are in the show notes. If you like this episode, please give us a good rating on your podcast platform of choice and share with all of your bros. Now go out and get it.